A lot of people or newer followers on here may not know that I used to struggle with binge eating disorder, bulimia, depression, severe body dysmorphia, and a lot of that came from bodybuilding and not being well educated when I got into bodybuilding. So this is why I'm so passionate about what I do now, why I'm going to become a dietitian, and just God willing, I'm able to help even more people down the road in a very, I guess, just reasonable, easily applicable manner to make nutrition and healthy living accessible and achievable. Talk about the number of verbs to as many women and just people as possible, especially to those who may have previously or currently are suffering with some of the similar type of eating disorders that. And so the way that I went about in my own healing journey does not necessarily need to look the same for you or anyone else if, let's say, you're struggling with this, but let me just share my own personal, I guess, journey. So I went from a hyper restrictive, drastically under eating, undernourishing my body state, not understanding hormonally how that impacts your body long term, especially if you're on a starvation diet for many months. And then on top of that, the way I let my hormones take over to the point where it created an eating disorder. I gained 30 pounds in a month, and then my self-image and body dysmorphic thoughts really took over to the point of depression and some really mentally low points of my life, which was back in 2017. I've talked about this approach a while ago and with previous clients, but my approach is not for everyone, like I've said. But what I essentially did was once I realized that the bodybuilding world wasn't for me, or at least how I was going about it and how I was being coached and all of that was really detrimental to my health, I went from hyper restrictive to I have no rules anymore. I had to release myself from the dieting culture and that mentality where every tool that I've previously talked about on here, like weighing your food or photos or measurements, they became all triggers to contribute to the binge eating and the bulimic behaviors that I was struggling with. So I went cold turkey, and so I shifted far to the other side and just ate whatever I wanted and whatnot. So keep in mind, it was 2017, and then I had gained 30 pounds in a month, and then I'd had about 4 to 5 months of off season, and then I had just started prepping for nationals for figure, and this was February of 2018, and I'd still had all the weight on me. And so this is when I decided to cut cold turkey, because I remember binging and then waking up the next morning with massive heart palpitations because I felt such intense guilt and shame because I knew my coach was going to be disappointed in me and I knew I didn't have a handle over it. And so for me, I knew I could probably push myself to getting on stage in 2018, but I also knew that after I stepped off stage, I likely wouldn't even recognize myself, and whatever eating disordered behavior or mental health issues I could have created by that time would have been 10 times worse than what they already were. Now that I think of it, I think it was closer to 50 pounds that I had on me because my stage weight was around 126 and I was close to 180 pounds. So it was quite a large difference. But anyways, regardless of what I ate, regardless of how much cardio I did over 2018, there was nothing that was going to change my weight. Hormonally, there's a lot of things going on that were just whack. And so I released myself from the expectation of trying to lose weight because it was a trigger for me. And so I really self-promoted self-love and just accepting my body for what it was. And I didn't even have a desire to eat healthy, and I was so consumed with the foods that I shouldn't eat and so restricted. I remember going into a bulk barn at any time of the night and just, well, when they were open, and grabbing food and snacking in my car. So that year, in terms of professionally, I was really focusing on life coaching and self-acceptance and all of that. And So all through 2018 and all through 2019, I stopped trying to lose weight. And I remember there was a couple of pivotal moments. The first moment was when I thought to myself, hey, Rebecca, what if you were this weight regardless of if you had done bodybuilding or not? Because I had this victimization story in my head saying, oh, I had ruined my body, I'd ruined my hormones, I'm there because of this. And it was kind of a limiting belief, or it was this story I kept telling myself in my head. And so first of all, it was kind of just accepting responsibility and saying, hey, you could be angry at this story, or you could just accept and move on and take responsibility. And accept responsibility as in, you're living in this body, whether you like it or not. So you may as well learn to enjoy living in this body. Because if it doesn't change, then that is going to be a pretty miserable life that you're going to live, Rebecca. So that was the one pivotal moment. And I mean, hand in hand, the story of how I came to become a follower of Christ and a believer kind of happened the same time that all my weight came off as well. I'm not going to assume correlation equals causation, but it was cool that it followed hand in hand. And so I was shuffling at the time. I had broken my foot early 2019, so that also restricted my movement, but I ate whatever I wanted. I just shuffled and started filling my life with types of movement that I truly loved, not because I needed to change my body in any way. And so the beginning of 2020 was when I actually started, and this is when I became a believer of Christ. But anyways, beginning of 2020 was when I really started to notice the shift in my physical appearance, and it was a side effect. It was the same time that I started craving salads and whole foods again. It took a good 2 years before I started just, I guess, intuitively craving to take care of my body again, where it would be with movement, mobility, nutrition, and all of that. And then 2020, 2021, I guess for 2.5 years, my body started getting back to what it felt comfortable in, which was a much lower weight, around anywhere between 150 to 155, which is where I'm at about now. And of course, end of 2020, I guess halfway through 2021 was when my body was just itself. And then I hired a coach again. Shout out Marie, because she's amazing. And I was thinking about prepping for a fitness competition, and my goal was, I love my body now. I want to be able to go in and out of this to end up looking basically the same as I do now, but do it for the education to teach my clients the same. And so essentially all we did was I started lifting weights way more consistently, and my nutrition was a lot more consistent. I was eating on average about 2,300 calories, and from July to December of 2021, my body composition went from 21% body fat to 16% body fat. I was shredded, had so much muscle, my body was just looking. And so the cool thing is when I went to hire Marie, I knew how I worked a lot better in terms of mentally, psychologically, what kinds of things fit my lifestyle and how I wanted nutrition to be in a way that wasn't restrictive. And she was excellent and very receptive with that. And so she created an amazing concept for nutrition. And so weighing out, using those same tools that used to be triggers for me became helpful tools and excellent tools to actually optimize my body composition and nutrition and all of that. And I still use all of those tools today and still play around with them, because now they've become healthy, helpful tools as opposed to restrictive. So that's where the duality can come in, and where the mindset plays such a large role in how you use these tools. And so kind of coming back to the old disorders, I mean, first of all, a good point to note is, even as a coach, Coaches still need coaches. I cannot be the third person, the third party outsider with absolutely no personal interest in the matter. I cannot analyze my own life from afar, right? When I'm emotionally involved. So hiring a coach, no matter how much you're in this field or how specialized you are in a specific area, it's still incredibly useful and helpful. And it offloads and takes that overwhelm and mental load off of me so I can just focus on my life as opposed to coaching myself and coaching others. And then second of all, I do believe, and this is a personal experience that for me, that the disordered patterns are always there underlying, but you build tools to help you become resilient at them over time. And so what I mean by this is I still have days, or I notice on days where I'm feeling a little more self-conscious, or I'm tired, or I have hormones swirling around, I'm PMSing or something like that. Sometimes I find those old disordered behaviors and urges can kind of boil up a little bit under the surface. So I was explaining to someone else that sometimes I still get these weird things. Like sometimes whenever I eat a meal, it's subtle now, but it's like a feeding frenzy. It's like as soon as I start eating, there's a very just subtle undertone of my body saying more, more, more. And so for that, now what I tell myself is, hey, Rebecca, you can have as much as you want, but just wait a little bit. And what will happen every single time is I will realize I'm satiated, full, and I've just moved on to in my